Welcome, everybody, to JG's Lounge. I've got several guests with me tonight. First off, I'm your host, Jukebox, of the Stardom Podcast. Right next to me, you got M-Balm from the M-Balm EFFECT. How you doing, man?
Good, man. How you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. We're running a little bit late, but it's all good. It's all good. I'm never really on a time schedule anyways, so it doesn't matter to me. So go ahead and tell everybody a little about you and your podcast, and we'll kind of run around the room here.
All right. I am M-Balm from the M-Balm EFFECT here live in the ROC, baby, which is Rochester, New York. If you're not familiar with that, home of the Garbage Plates, also home of Kodak, which unfortunately is now defunct. It's still here, but not really. We are a hot talk podcast. We talk about everything from service dogs crapping on grocery store floors to things happening in the world. We smash stuff on there now because we have capabilities of doing that outside. We could take the show outside and inside. No matter, everywhere you go, we could take it. So that's what she said. Any way you can go, you can take it. So yeah, check us out. TheMBalmEffect.com is our URL, and we're on YouTube. So smash that sub, bash that bell, all for the good times. All that fun stuff.
Yes. Beish from Return of the Critic says Beish is here. How's it going, man? Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Well, is it here, brother? No, I'm just joking. So I'm Sean. I'm from the podcast Sitting with Sean, where we talk about mental health disorders and substance abuse disorders, as well as recovery from those. We also highlight people that are doing extraordinary shit in their life and just making the best out of a shitty situation and improving humanity. That's what I like to do. And I live in Anchorage, Alaska, home of the fucking grizzly bears and the moose and any animal. Santa Claus. A lot of people don't know that there's a North Pole. A lot of fucking people don't know there's a North Pole. Google it. North Pole, Alaska. There's a Santa station there. Santa has a postal code. He's real. Yeah. So thanks for having me.
That's awesome. And you look like Santa over there with your beard all,
last Christmas I did a Christmas party and I painted my hair white, got up in the Santa suit. Kids were like losing their shit, dude.
I might have to have Santa on the show this year.
Yeah, kids were losing their shit. Moms were sitting on my lap. It was crazy.
Oh, we got an old lady that can sit on your lap over here. So if you ever come down here, big boy, we can get her on your lap.
Hey, why not? Hey, tell me how much of a good boy you been.
Very.
All right. Hey, Wize man, again, it's been a while. I'm glad to have you back on the show. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
I am Wize. I'm the host of Stuck in My Mind podcast. It's just a conversation podcast. I have some great people come on talk. If they got something to promote, they'll come on and promote. If not, if they got a story to share, they'll share their story. But it's just me trying to put out some great content, man. Just put out some positive stuff out there.
Yeah. And you and I actually met through a guy who was sending us some guests. Yes. I don't really touch base with him anymore. But,
no. We are a lot of us that didn't mess when we call them Voldemort.
We don't talk about him.
We don't talk about him.
No, oh no.
Does he have the nose of Voldemort?
What was that, Cory?
Is this the same dude?
Yes. So
I'm thinking.
Probably. Yes, probably.
He's a PR guy.
Yeah, he's
something like that.
He's a PR. He was on like the Facebook groups and
more like PU guy.
We're not going to mention his name.
Yeah, we don't promote him.
Don't be a talk slut for this guy. Be a talk slut for Ruby Red Kolsch.
I am thankful that he did introduce me to some great people like Jim and stuff like that. So.
Yes, no, and that is one thing that I can say is I did get a good start, run. I hit the ground running with some of the guests that he did send me, so I do have to say that. Cory, man, go ahead and introduce yourself, dude.
Hi, I'm Cory. I'm from Philly. I'm a pro wrestler and a stand-up comedian, and I also host a podcast called Evolving with Cory Kastle.
And you have another one now with your girlfriend, correct?
Yes, it's on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Cory Kastle, all one word, spelled as such, CORYKASTLE. And the show is called S.H.A.M.E. We have people call into an anonymous phone number and leave us a voicemail and just ask us any advice or any questions about relationships that they've got. my girlfriend's a sales consultant for women's parties. So any kinds of those questions that people might have, they can ask her on that. Or the last questions we got were, how do you talk to your woman about how she doesn't shower every day?
Get in the shower.
Just get in.
Right. So it's a lot of questions like that.
That's
so
awesome.
far, 3 episodes in, we're having a good time with it, and we looked at it as a tool to grow us closer as a relationship. You know what I mean? As partners with each other.
Right, and she actually is a singer. She has been on what is it, Singing with the Stars? Is that correct?
Sing on. It's on Netflix.
Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what all? She's in a band too. What's her band called?
The Red Hots.
I got to get her on my other show, man.
Red Hots Band at Red Hots Band on Instagram.
What style of music is that?
It's like a mix of like alternative and top 40 covers.
Okay, all right, yeah. Hey,
It's party
so
rock.
Doc just got back to me, and apparently this is my fault because I told him 9 o'clock his time, but apparently he's the same time zone as me. So he said he will be on in 5 minutes.
All right, he's still coming on. All right.
Yes, that's good.
Joining the orgy.
Time zones and what have you.
I hate them. I absolutely hate time zones.
Time
I
zones,
actually
man.
had short bloke Josh from Australia on, and he was 13 hours ahead of me. So I did it at 7 in the morning here, and it was like 9 o'clock there.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I've had a couple of people from Australia.
I forgot who made this joke, and forgive me if it feels like I'm stealing it, but they were like, whenever it was daylight savings time, they were like, I give it 6 months.
I have people that are on the East Coast and they're like, oh, we can do it 9 o'clock my time. I try to facilitate for everybody and make it comfortable for them. That's 5 in the morning for me, bro. Like I'm up. I'm like, hey, how's it going? You're sitting with Sean right now, guys.
Sitting with Sean. Hey.
Well, when I've got my buddies from Ireland on too, it's usually 6 in the morning here. So yeah, I mean, you do what you can to talk to interesting people, though, man. I mean, I don't mind doing it when I can do it. So
Did you guys see that Brian Regan special, the last Netflix special by Brian Regan? He had a bit about like everybody who ever talked to him from the East Coast when he moved to California was like, okay, so it's 9 o'clock my time. Like they would always say what time it was. That means for you. Every single time he'd be talking to them on the phone or on an email or something.
yeah, no, it's whenever I'm talking to people and booking, like I got some comedians coming up in the next few weeks lined up, and they're all over the place. So I'm like, I'm Central Standard Time, but they'll still get confused and they'll be like, so what time is that for me? And I'm like, that's why I'm telling you that it's Central Time so you can figure that out.
Right. Just go on Google and just say Central Time versus whatever, like Eastern. I know where I'm at, so you gotta Google these things.
I got the little clock thing set up on my phone so that like it tells different time zones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Usually when I schedule somebody, it'll show my time zone, but it works out, especially if they're on the other side of the world.
Oh yeah, they're all the way out in like China or something, and you're like, oh shit.
Sean, for you right now, what is it? 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock,
5 o'clock,
5 o'clock,
5 p.m.
Yeah.
Man,
And is it what 9:30 almost for the rest of you?
Yeah.
9:22.
9:20.
9:22.
Yep.
It's crazy.
bro. I don't even eat dinner until everybody's in bed.
I know.
That's crazy.
I have these friends who have a podcast that like they try to get me to listen to it all the time, and it seems like every time I listen to it, they spend the first like 30 minutes talking about what the weather's been like, and I'm like, if I wanted to listen to that, I would just go to a break room. I don't need to listen.
I got the Weather Channel on. I'll just leave it on for the day. I'll be fine.
Like, what is this, the weather podcast?
Right. I mean,
because the one guy, shout out to my boys Renee and Dan because they're awesome. Their show's called Perfectly Misfit, but a lot of times, like, because Renee lives in Denver, and Dan lives in Grand Rapids, so they're always like the cold, ooh, the hot, like it's never.
You know what? Kansas City is insane though, because it gets like 110 here. Like right now, the heat index is about 110.
Is it a dry heat though? That's not like humidity or anything.
It's humid. Right? No, it's
is
humid.
It?
Oh
Jesus! So I know how that goes. I mean, not 110, but it's humid here most of the time. Like
Florida,
right now.
when I was in Florida, it was hot and I burned, but I was not.
Oh
sweating.
man, I used to live in Tampa, man, and I would get out the shower and I'm already sweating.
Already sweating.
You got swamp ass going to sleep.
Well, that's Kansas City 24/7.
Well, jukebox, man, you got burned over there in Florida.
I do. I get fried.
Damn.
Swamp ass is the main reason I stopped wearing boxer shorts. I switched to briefs mad quick.
Yeah.
Boys, I was just listening to this old podcast. Like I had to do it like probably 4 years ago, and it was like it was Jimmy Rave. Jimmy Rave was this wrestler who just died in December.
Oh.
He was my friend, and his daughter had hit me up and was talking to me about some other like stuff. If his stuff was like seen, some of his stuff, and then I was like, "Hey, did you ever hear the podcast I did with your dad?" And she was like, "No." And I sent it to her, and she listened to it. She was like, "Oh my God, he's so clear. He sounds so much more like himself than anything I ever hear him on. Thank you so much for doing this." Like I felt so cool about that. But then I listened back to it, and we're 10 minutes into it, and I'm like, I always got this pool of sweat in my boxer shorts.
Bro, my wife for the past 2 years, no joke, has a subscription to this joint called S.H.A.M.E, and they sell boxer briefs, and they're the best boxer briefs I ever had. But the tagline is "Welcome to Ball Holla," because it's a bull hammock. You get a bull hammock, dude. It's great.
That's great, man.
Oh man.
Ball holla.
Ball holla.
Go to ballholla.com and put in the promo code Clash of the Casters.
Yes. Hashtag Clash Casters.
You'll get one swamp off.
One swap off being a talk slut.
You get streak-free undies.
I hate I try wearing the silky like boxer briefs, but then like my pants just want to fall down constantly.
Yeah, you don't want that.
I try to wear those, and I feel like I have more money than I really do.
We
balling on a budget.
Balling on a budget.
Man, you guys are causing me anxiety and stress over here.
Oh, there go. He's gonna be stressed out the rest of the night now. Look at this guy. He's got anxiety. He's gonna get kicked off, canceled for all the things we're saying.
Yeah, I'm gonna kick myself off the show.
Canceled.
You gonna say, "Fuck this, have fun, guys."
Do it live.
I'll just turn myself off, and you guys keep going.
Cory, you're just you're just a couple hours away from me. I'm in the Poconos.
Oh, cool. I was just about to go there 2 weeks ago to visit my cousin, but then I backed out last minute because I was being a sad boy, and I'm a good sad boy for canceling every single thing that has come up lately. Just too sad to move out of my house. I cancel every plan I ever make.
All right. Dr. Glenn Doyle, I apologize, and I take full blame for this, but I did think you were an hour ahead of me, so I apologize.
Well, you know, Chicago famously not being smack in the middle of the country or anything. like if there was a city where you're like, I wonder what city would be on Central Time, maybe this city smack in the middle of the country.
Smack dab.
Well, it caused me a little stress and anxiety, so I don't know if there's anybody here I can talk to about that.
I think we're all here for this.
Talk to
You know
all of
what?
us.
We all are actually professionals in this, so we can.
And we're
help
here
you
for
out,
you.
okay?
What?
I don't know.
Speak for yourself, man. I don't know if I would call myself professional.
All I know is that I logged on to hear Kastle screaming about how he's the sad boy. So it just seemed like situation normal for him.
Castle's the most experienced in this, I think.
Well, actually, so Cory is how I actually met Dr. Glenn Doyle here. So, Doctor, I would like for you to meet M-Balm is right next to me. He is the host of the M-Balm Effect. You have Sean next to him that he hosts Sitting with Sean. And then we also have Wize down there next to Cory. He hosts Stuck in My Mind podcast. He also hosts or I guess you don't really host it, but you run an online radio station.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. It is a pleasure to meet everybody. How is it the case that I have the least intense facial hair? No one gave me this memo.
I should have told you to get a wig.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Everybody's got a beard here. Oh, wow. All right.
When you told me this, you should have said between now and then, like, do not trim, don't shave.
Grow a full beard.
You needed to do something for your cred.
Stipulations to be on here.
That's right. Golden ticket.
I'm the Gandalf of the group.
So
yes, he is.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Dr. Glenn Doyle, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself before we kind of get into the topic here.
Hi, I'm Dr. Glenn Doyle at Dr. Doyle Says on all the things. I'm a psychologist. I practiced in Chicago, which I don't know if you knew this, it's smack in the middle of the country in the Central Time Zone. Well, if you knew that. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm a head shrinker. I specialize in working with folks, usually with severe post-traumatic disorders, and so anxiety disorders are kind of smack in the middle of my expertise. I've been doing that essentially my entire career, and you guys probably know me from all the social things, all the Twitters and the Instagrams and the Facebooks.
Of course.
I kind of try to put content out there that's it's food for thought. I try to put things out there that I just kind of try and drop seeds. You can see like when Cory Kastle's hair has kind of like stood on end. That's because I dropped a seed of wisdom. I've been on his show twice, so now he's got a bunch of little seeds of wisdom just kind of sprouting.
Do you know what's funny? You're like really famous to my girlfriend, and I didn't know that you were like a big deal to her. And then when I had you on my show, she was like, "Wait a minute, you had Dr. Doyle on your podcast?" And like, I was like, "Oh, he's one of my favorite follows." And I was like, "Oh, he's just my friend."
Dude, most of the time when somebody begins a sentence with "you're really famous to my girlfriend," they're about to kick my ass. So,
well, it's a good thing I'm on Eastern Standard Time.
Wait, hold on. But, hey, you do have two offices, correct? You have one in D.C.?
That is true. I'm licensed in Washington, D.C., and I have a handful of clients out there. I used to live out there. Okay.
For some reason, I was thinking that's where you were. Not to make up for my mistake here, but I did think that you were. Well, every one of you, I do appreciate you coming on this episode of Clash of the Casters. And for my followers, Clash of the Casters is something I do. It's more of a serious topic where I collaborate with several podcasters and sometimes special guests that kind of specialize in the topic, which is why we have Dr. Glenn Doyle here. And today, for this episode, we are going to talk about stress and anxiety. And I do want to start out with more of what we do know about what causes stress and anxiety before we kind of get into, how people react differently to situations. What I did see when I first started kind of researching was that the limbic system, the amygdala part of the brain is what releases the chemical compounds that kind of create the nervous system reacting to the situations. Is that correct?
That's part of it. If we're gonna, well, it's one of these things where like the human nervous system. What we're really talking about is the human nervous system and the human endocrine system, right?
Right.
So the nervous system is the brain and the spinal column and all our nerves, and then when we have a nervous breakdown, that's what's happening. It's the nervous system.
Right.
Like I work with the nervous system a lot because I work with PTSD, right?
Right.
And the endocrine system is the system in our body that kind of pumps out all the hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really kind of the nervous system, the endocrine system that typically regulated. Like typically, if we grow and evolve in the way that we're supposed to grow and evolve,
right?
They're pumping out the right amount of whatever when they need it, right? When something goes wrong, like you experience a traumatic event or you're under chronic stress, or something like that happens, then our nervous system, our endocrine system becomes dysregulated. And so we either get way too much of what would ordinarily be a good thing. Like, so for example, when, I'm sure you ran across in your research, one of the big stress hormones is cortisol.
Yes, I saw 3 of them. I saw cortisol, adrenaline, and then the norepinephrine.
Norepinephrine, sure.
That's yeah.
Yeah. So
The stuff on
I'm no expert.
All
the stuff on
three of
crank.
them are super important, right?
Yeah.
Like so adrenaline, like we all know, like adrenaline is when we're in crisis, when something terrible is happening.
Yes.
Our adrenals kind of kick into action,
Right.
and squirt a bunch of adrenaline into our system, so we can lift the car off the baby. Or that's the example that everybody gives. I've never heard of that one. Like lifting the car off the baby.
Yeah.
There's a baby under the car?
There's a baby under the car. Dude, if there's a baby under the car, you need that adrenaline.
If there's a baby under the car, there's something wrong.
Yeah, that's all. Adrenaline and noradrenaline, I mean, they're more involved in so in my line of work in PTSD treatment, we talk about fight or flight. You've heard this?
Yes.
When something, a crisis pops out in front of us, the saber-toothed tiger pops out in front of us and is going to eat us. We want to either be able to fight and kill the saber-toothed tiger, or we want to flee the saber-toothed tiger and get away. Right? Adrenaline makes us able to do that. Like under normal circumstances, we're not able to do that. But here's the point: like all these hormones, all these stress hormones,
right,
in the normal course of life, are really great things. Where it turns into a problem is when you're having these hormones or these neurotransmitters. Like some neurotransmitters are how the nervous system communicates with itself, right?
Right.
It's how the parts of your brain, like the amygdala. How did you pronounce it? The amygdala? I love
amygdala. I like the amygdala. It sounds better.
It just sounds better.
Yeah, it does.
I'm gonna name my next cat Amygdala. Like
Cory, whip out your bongo, Cory.
Oh yeah, get the bongo. Get the bongo. Yeah.
Amygdala.
There it is.
So, but like people who have like a lot of stress and anxiety, is it because that hormone is just being released longer for certain people than others, or like what is it that is? Because I don't really stress or have too much anxiety. Like it's very rare for me to get stressed out.
Now he's stressed. Here comes the stress. Now he's freaking out. Play it cool, jukebox. Play it cool.
But
just breathe.
But then you have like my wife, for example. She gets anxiety a lot.
For example, take my wife, please.
Well, and it's so I'm just curious as far as the what is it in the human body that is so different? Is it because of the release of those hormones just react different to each person, or?
Well, as a rule, like if we want like our nervous system and our endocrine system to be, like I said a moment ago, as regulated as possible, like what that means is we need those hormones and those neurotransmitters when we need them in the amounts that we need them.
Right.
It can turn into a problem when we either have too much at the wrong times or too little at the right times, right?
Right.
So as a general rule, what we're talking about is this thing called dysregulation. And that's essentially, like, so the example that I always use is like, so I have ADHD, right?
Okay, yeah.
I'm sure you can't tell it all, but this is kind of crazy bookshelf behind me and shit. Like, I'm sure nobody here has ADHD. Like,
No. I don't know. I never was really diagnosed.
Like, what'd you say?
I thought that was a green screen.
Yeah, well, that's the green screen. Jukebox is really in the bar.
Really? No, but that's the thing. Like, so the way I explain it is like, so what is ADHD? It's not just a deficit of attention. It's the inability or not the inability, but it's really hard to put attention where it needs to go when it needs to go there, right? Like that's why sometimes people with ADHD we can. We're scattered all over the place sometimes, but then sometimes we can play video games for 9 hours straight.
Right.
Some people are like, how can you have ADHD? You play Halo for 9 hours. For example, I'm not saying that
I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never played a
Never
video game in my
done
life.
that, right?
Never, ever.
But wait,
Did you
but
bring the
it's-
Cheetos and Mountain Dew?
Code Red, bro.
Code Red? But it's the same thing with hormones. It's the same thing with neurotransmitters, right? It's
Right.
not necessarily too much all the time or too little all the time. It's not having enough going where they need to go when they need to go there, right?
Right. Now, is that something? So, I mean, I'm sure in a lot of your practice and what you do, that's something that can people regulate that themselves, like by helping distract them or overcome whatever it is that's stressing them. Is that something that they could do on their own?
No, they need to pay me $400 an hour.
Hey, that's a good price.
Stress and anxiety.
No, that's supposed to soothe your stress.
That
and
would give me
anxiety.
some anxiety right there.
It's supposed to soothe that.
We're kind of crushing the time. So this is what you do for a living. Can you just do this on your own?
800 a month.
Well, I mean, people pay you to kind of help them through it, but obviously that means they could do it on their own.
Go watch a YouTube video. It's fine. You don't have to pay.
YouTube
I
every
got
TikTok.
$20.
Just watch some TikTok.
You got like 20. Will that work?
I got you $1.
You know what? I say that facetiously. My rate is not $400 an hour. I say that facetiously because they're actually there's. I'm gonna go off on a tangent for a second. There are therapists who charge that. There are therapists, particularly psychoanalysts, they love to charge multiple hundreds of dollars, usually for not even an hour, usually for like a 45-minute psychotherapy session. And so whenever possible, I like to mock and criticize that way of doing business because
His rate is $3.99, not $400.
I know.
99.
I'm launching an unfair, unfactual attack on Dr. Shedler right now. Oops, I say that out loud.
Shots
And
fired?
if you
Starting
And
a
if you-
website called onlyfacts.com.
and if you subscribe to his YouTube channel, you get $1 off.
You get $1 off.
For the love of God, don't go to @Jonathan Shedler and
And don't go to that guy.
anyway.
Yeah.
No, here's the thing, man. Like when you ask, are we able to regulate ourselves? We are regulating ourselves. Like I always say, like when somebody shows up in my office, the story is not how disorganized they are. Like the story is how they've been getting by on their own, right?
Yeah.
Like usually by the time, so I'm a PTSD specialist. Like usually by the time somebody makes it to my office, they've been surviving some terrible, terrible stuff for years on their own.
Right.
If you go to my Twitter, like my pinned tweet is like, look, the best minds in mental health are not the docs. Like they're not like me. Like there are these people who have been surviving under this unfathomable stress and figuring it out, right? Without me, without my $400 an hour advice.
They're fathoming it.
Well,
They're fathoming it.
And that's a good point because this what you do wouldn't be a title if there weren't people out there that needed it. So
True.
So that's the thing. Like, no, I mean, people tend to be extraordinarily resilient, and I don't think they get enough credit. Like, again, I think there's this stigma. Well, I know there's this stigma that's going into therapy or getting mental health help because it's like, well, okay, what does that mean? I don't have my shit together. No, man. Like the fact that you're getting help is usually like you've had to hold your shit together for way too long without help. So please come in, let me help you.
Especially with the stigma to them that men shouldn't go seek help.
That's true, man.
Especially with the fact that we're supposed to be strong and we're supposed to not cry and not. But it's bull crap because we're just as fragile as everybody else, man.
Yeah, I see a lot of stigma surrounding like the veteran community. I myself am a vet, and I see a lot of the stigma surrounding the vet community that they're afraid that their weapons are going to be taken away if they go receive help. And like with what I do, I understand like no, that's not that won't happen unless you have a violent crime. But like that stigma that they're gonna take my guns away because I'm asking for help. No, dude, that's not gonna happen. But getting your self help is gonna help you to not need to use that gun when you feel like you need to.
Big time. Big time. And I'll say I've worked with guys who that's been the big fear. Yeah, I can remember specifically one case where it absolutely needed hospital treatment. Like he wasn't safe outside of the hospital. But his big concern was like, well, man, once I ring that bell, you can't unring it. And he was not only a gun guy, but he was like a collector, like not just like guns, but like vintage guns and these kinds of things. It was like a big passion of his, and it was a big concern that not only would he lose access to just firearms generally, but this huge hobby and this huge community, right?
Right.
Like, because it was a big part of his social life too, like other collectors and these kinds of things. So no, that's very real, man. That's very, very real.
Yeah, and and now that I think about that, there's a lot of people that that's a big stress is well, is this going to happen if I go to somebody, like even marriages, jobs. I know for my work, for entrance related stuff, people get worried about stuff outside of work, whether it's medicine that they take, and if they damage something at work, am I going to get fired? So I understand that can cause stress on people. I typically avoid anything that's going to cause me to get in trouble and lose my job. So, but I know there's people out there that can't handle it.
Found quote of the evening so far. I typically avoid things that will get me in trouble and lose my job. I don't know.
It depends on what the weather is.
Yeah, the weather.
Well, I mean, like, for example, I know that there's people at my work that suffer from, addictions. You can just tell, right? And they will talk about it. I've had people that have talked to me about it, and they're scared about going to get help because they don't want to lose their jobs. And I don't really know how to respond to people like that,
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you on that. Tell them what's worth it. Your job or your health or your life, really.
Or your life.
Because you can, and I know the job economy is like, or the job searching and all that is going to be terrible, but you can't work a job if you're dead.
No,
you can't.
Right.
You can't work a job if you miss your job because of addiction. I've been there. I know what it feels like. That shit's not fun. You get if you get fired, you can't work your job if you're under addiction, and you continuously call out of work because you're hungover or you're DTN or whatever.
Right. And you deal with mostly vets, right? Or do you deal with everybody?
A little bit of everything, but primarily vets.
Right. Well, Cory or M-Balm, you guys got anything that you want to throw in? You guys have been kind of quiet. I didn't know if you had any topics you wanted to discuss before we continue.
Or they're just stressing out silently, like
just soaking it in, just drinking it in, man, drinking it in.
Cory was there violently banging on the drums, so he's got all his
banging on the bongos,
I'm fine.
Banging out the drums, rubbing one out. You don't know. You just don't know what he's doing over there.
With his third hand.
There's a third one? What is this, like Goro from Mortal Kombat, 4 arms?
but honestly, though, you guys got anything that you want to throw in?
Dude, no, I don't.
Cory's never stressed. He gets to take it out in the ring, man. He gets to slam people around for a living.
Oh, that's a great misconception to have. Please keep having that. Please keep having that concept. Yeah, same. Yeah, I mean, I haven't had a match in a couple months. Honestly, I'm pretty well. Not in a couple months. No, I did the Aquaman show for the Cosplay Pro Wrestling a couple weekends ago. But for the most part, I haven't had any matches lately.
Oh wow!
And I've been sitting on my fatas for like 4 months.
What's a fatas? What is this fatas you speak of?
It's French.
So
it's French for fat ass.
So here's a question for Cory,
sure,
who is not just a pro wrestling sensation, the best there is, the best there was, the best ever will be.
The shit man.
Is that like copyright infringement right there?
That should be. I don't know.
It is now. He's getting canceled.
Didn't he just make that up? I was just gonna accept that compliment. Yes,
just gonna accept it. But that was Bret Hart's. Bret Shart's.
Who?
Brett Shark.
No, something occurred to me. So I went to a stand-up, to see a stand-up comedian named John Mulaney. If you're familiar with him.
I'm very familiar. Yeah.
Little girl John Mulaney. He's a little-known stand-up comedian who, just sold out the United Center, which is this great big arena where the Bulls play here in Chicago, 3 nights in a row. So he's rather famous.
Yeah, he's definitely had a comeback. There's more. That's like if there's any more of a comeback, like in comedy in the last. I mean, we'll see if Louis comes back, but I'd say Mulaney's comeback is he didn't get canceled or anything, but like not like Louis did, but he fell.
Had a hell of a couple years, right?
Yeah,
So we're talking about addiction and stress, so he had an intervention. He was going really hard on the cocaine, and it was cocaine, Percocet, Xanax, Klonopin.
He's partying.
He was partying, right? I was kind of thinking about that. I'm like, cocaine and those benzodiazepines are, like that's
uppers and downers.
He's throwing the fuck down.
Yeah, he's.
They said that he was in a rehab in PA. Yeah, and where I live, this is like there's rehab. This is the birth, like this is the capital of addicts for like in rehabs in PA. I live in Levittown. It's like who around the world,
you know.
So what occurred to me was, I went to the show, and he's talking a lot about that experience of the intervention and rehab, and it was great because he was talking about, like, I'm not going to give away any of his material except this little tiny bit.
He's coming for you, bro.
He's coming for me.
He's giving it away.
I don't know. But no, he said, at first I was concerned I was going to go into rehab and people were going to recognize me, right?
Right.
And then he says that after the first week in rehab, like I realized I had the opposite problem. No one recognized me, and that was driving me insane. And my girlfriend like jabs me. She goes, that would be you in rehab. I'm like, thanks. But the point is, like, when this whole show, and he was telling all these stories about the intervention and getting clean and going to rehab, and it hasn't been terribly long. And there was a real edge to his material that I didn't really associate with his old stuff. Like, his old stuff was really kind of more upbeat, but I mean, it's a real tonal shift. So, Cory, I was going to ask you and ask the group in general. Obviously, comedy is something that you use to, you work through some things. Like, it would be really hard not to. Like, John Mulaney was obviously working through some things. I saw Louis C.K. when he was in Chicago at the end of last year. He's clearly working through some things, like some of the anger and loss and whatnot. So, Cory, is it your experience that this art form is helpful to you in kind of managing your own anxiety and stress, or does it make it more difficult because, like, God, I can't just shout. I have to somehow craft a joke that can entertain people and.
I have to say it's more satisfying just to have funny conversation with people and make people laugh in real life than on stage, because like you sift through 19 bombs in a row, and that's not any good for your self-esteem at all. So, like, just doing comedy and it's like, dude, I'm doing rooms that have 9 people in them, so it's sometimes just as depressing. It's like, here's all my shit. Just listen to it with a blank look on your face, please. Yay!
Well, and for me, I've got my wife and my kids, and I work about 55 to 60-hour weeks, and I don't have, I don't go out to bars. This is a green screen.
He's lying.
It's could have fooled me.
I don't really
blew my mind, man.
This is my guys' night out. This is me relaxing, having a good time, talking to people all over the world, and it's really made me enjoy doing this. Whether this becomes a side gig where I'm making money, I would like for that to be a thing in the future, but I'm not worried about it. I just enjoy doing it.
Yeah, you can't worry about that kind of stuff. I mean, you do this. I've been doing this for a little over 3 years, and I've never really thought, hey, I'm really doing this because I want to make a second job out of it or whatever the case may be. And if it happens, it happens, But I enjoy it. I enjoy meeting all of you. I enjoy all the bits we do. I enjoy the conversations that I've had over the last 3 years. And to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to more.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
This is my therapy. This is therapy for me.
Yeah.
To be able to come out, and especially if I had a rough day at work, I could actually come home and record something and just let it out.
Yeah, some guys come home and beat their wives. We come on and we beat our meat underneath the cameras while we're talking about stress and anxiety
with our third hands.
M-Balm, you sure like talking about that topic? Is that what you're saying?
can't help it. You should see our show.
It's like one of the favorite things to do.
Developing here.
The M stands for masturbation.
Masturbation bomb. Yeah, that's what they. Everybody's got their own little thing, and we have our own little balm. It's called the M-Balm for masturbation. You know what I'm saying? It's a good way to get the.
Jesus.
I need to tell you guys that my girlfriend was texting. Or at least a minute ago anyway, she was watching our stream.
There are people watching, so yeah.
And her remark is, quote unquote, "This reeks of dudes."
Sausage fest.
Reeks of dudes.
Yeah,
I'm not exactly sure what that means. This reeks of dudes.
Well, it's a guy's night out.
It's a guy's night out. This is what we talk about. This is what we do.
I don't mean to bring the room down, but I'll tell you how I used to handle stress and how I handle it now.
No, let's get back on topic. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. So, as like M-Balm knows and as Jukebox knows, I'm in recovery. I've been sober for 2.5 years. Dude, when bad shit would happen in my life, I get stressed. I turn to the bottle. Like no joke. Bad day at work. I drive home, pick up a bottle, boom, go to the head, and it got so bad, and it got so bad really quick. And then when I ended up getting into recovery and stuff, I didn't know I could have fun being sober, dude. And like I'm sober shit now, and I enjoy having fun. And I'm not against like people drinking or whatever. I just know I can't do it. But now like the way that I handle stress is like music. Like I have a guitar back here, drum set over there. If I feel like kicking the shit out of somebody, I get on my guitar. On my drums. Like Animal from fucking Muppets. But
gotta love the Muppets.
Yeah, gotta love the Muppets. Or I play video games, because. But I don't play stressful video games. I play Minecraft.
Oh, you don't play GTA 5 and pick up a hooker, take her out to the alleyway, and beat her up with a baseball bat? That's a good way to relieve stress, right?
I mean, that's a gateway, okay? That's a gateway to violent crimes.
I don't know. I've been playing video games like that since 2001, and here I am, 31 years old. Never did anything like that.
I only started playing GTA after I had a violent crime, okay?
And I do have to say, as far as alcohol goes, I've made it a point in my life to never drink for a purpose besides to just relax and have a drink. If I'm stressed or I'm upset, I won't drink. I just to prevent that even being an issue, So, if I had a long day at work, I'll come home, I'll have some whiskey on the rocks, or I'll have a beer. That's it. I don't do it because I'm having a bad day. So,
for me, it was
coming from the booze hound who's recording from a bar.
Hey, I can just turn it off. Do I need to turn it off? Just
turn it off. You can't turn off where you are.
For me, that addictive personality came from a few different forms. It was hereditary because my dad and my mom and my grandparents were all had addiction issues, and then it's a learned habit from the army. Like you do everything. You have a good day and you go get drunk. You have a dining out, you go get drunk. You have a barbecue, you go get drunk. You get drunk because you got drunk, and like
celebration.
Man.
Yeah, celebration. If you have a buddy that passed, you get drunk. And that's one of the few learned habits. And then when I was younger, my dad was a huge drinker. I didn't find out until later on in life that he was doing harder shit. But I seen from him, he'd have a hard week, being out on the road as a trucker and come back home, and I'd come home from school and he'd be hammered drunk, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so that's what I knew. And I knew you handle stress by drinking, and it will be okay.
Yeah, I noticed if I'm like angry or something, I'm not even in the mood to drink. I just need to kind of decompress, maybe vent out in the open, and just kind of like think about things, and then just kind of like take a breather and be like, all right, let's fix all this. You know what I'm saying? Never once did I ever feel like if I was angry, I was like, I need a bottle. I never thought ever in one of those moments that I needed that. You know, so it's kind of interesting to hear all these different perspectives. You know.
And you know, Sean, I do actually have a question. When you started going into recovery, I imagine that your stress and your anxiety levels probably peaked when you first kind of got into the recovery process. Did you seek help to get through that?
Oh, automatically. Like, so I didn't seek help right away. I was in jail when that happened, but when I got out, I started seeking help. I went to 12-step programs. I ended up going into counseling and seeking out peer support, and like the anxiety got worse. Like, it got worse not because of what I was doing, but the frequency of what I was doing and how much I was doing it. Like, I'm the type of person that I go balls to the wall. If I enjoy something, and you pick that out, Jukebox, if I enjoy something, I'm going balls to the wall. There is no slow or medium pace for me. I go balls to the wall or nothing at all.
Yeah.
Right. And then the wall smells all like balls and stuff.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Sweaty
smells
swamp
like,
ass.
Smells like
I'm just
Commanda.
so glad I have this, professional doctor over here listening to us talk like this.
Yeah. And
First time I've ever heard anything like it. It's
He's
amazing.
probably like, yeah, y'all all need help.
If he ever watches my podcast, the M-Balm Effect, holy Christ, he's gonna be like, okay, I need to get this guy in his office right now.
he's gonna be traumatized.
Yes.
But no, so my anxiety and stress peaked really high, to the point where I was having full blown panic attacks. I didn't know what they were, man. Like, I'd be laying in bed and it just felt like my heart was like coming out of my chest, and I couldn't breathe. I was getting like spots in my vision. It was scary. I was like, I'm fucking dying, and I don't even know what's happening. And my wife actually was the one that was like, "You're having a panic attack," and I was like, No, I'm not. She's like, "Yeah, you are, because I have them, and this is exactly what happens." And I was, at that point, I was able to say, okay, this is what's happening. I talked to my counselor about it, and then we ran through things on how to do that. But the stress and anxiety, that level of stress and anxiety doesn't exist in my life anymore.
That's good, man.
Yeah. And then I learned to moderate everything.
Well, and like you said, you're still in recovery, and it's been 2.5 years, but you're still in recovery. Like, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
If anybody follows my writing online, you'll know that I talk about recovery a lot, because, and not just recovery from addiction. I talk about recovery from depression, recovery from trauma, recovery from addiction, recovery from eating disorders, because my take is that, and I'm in recovery. I'm a recovering addict as well. By the way, I gotta say, there's a subset of addicts who are probably watching who heard everything that you guys just said about, like, man, I make it a point not to drink when I'm stressed or angry or whatever, or I'm not even in the mood for a beer. And there's a subset of people watching who are like, I wonder what that feels like.
Yeah.
Like what could that possibly be like to not want to get high or to alter one's state of consciousness? The how I've always likened or likened it to, it's the idea that my addiction will constantly look for excuses, right? So, like, you were saying, boy, like, you drink if you have a good day, you drink if you have a bad day, you drink if something went great, something tragic happened, etc. That's kind of how it works for a lot of addicts, but also for a lot of trauma disorders, also for a lot of depression, right? Like, people who are suicidal describe this a lot. Like, if you've got that suicidal bug, it will look for an excuse, right? To kind of insert that into the conversation, or to insert that little, maybe you need some pills, maybe you need to change the way you feel, because that's really what we're talking about, is changing the way we feel.
Right.
Like, really, when we talk about whether it's the substance itself or the behavior itself or whatnot, we're really just changing, man, I want different. And where the addict mentality really kicks into gear. Is, you know, you're talking about going balls to the wall. Man, that is such an addict thing, right? Because I can't conceive. Like, I'm sitting here and I'm in recovery. And I'm sitting here and I can't imagine if you find something that makes you feel good, that works, right?
Right.
If you find something that reliably makes you change how you feel, and then you're going to voluntarily say, I've had enough of that. Or I'm not going to do that tonight. That makes no sense to me either. Like, why would you not want to feel that way?
Right. I can understand that.
Big time.
Yeah, I just pictured like there's like a house nanny 911 show, and the kid, and she was like throwing out all the food, and the kid was like, "Bacon's good for me." So just picture. Why would I give up the thing that's good for me?
What about bacon strips?
But that's the same. That's the same in recovery. I see people, you know, because I help people that are in therapeutic courts, and I see people that, you know, they get out of the program and they're working their own program. They're like, okay, well, I know 12-step programs worked for me, and they were good and they were awesome and they were helping me out. I don't need them anymore. And then they step away from it and then they fall. And it's like, well, you just took something that was working for you and you said it was the best possible thing in your life, and you just eliminated it, and now you're back to square one. Mm-hmm. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like, you took something away that worked, and now you're like you're walking in a house without a floor.
Yeah, it's like you're never like, oh, all done. Like,
right?
Yeah, you got to keep going.
But
yeah,
recovery
is a lifelong thing.
But your addiction will tell you you're done.
Yeah,
your addiction will absolutely be like, oh, come on, like, you don't need to do that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Listen, like, all of y'all, it's a sabotage.
Big time, big time. And again, like, all these things kind of come full circle and intertwine with each other. Like, I'll go back to what I said a moment ago about how I have ADHD. What that means is I got to do certain things every day, or else shit won't get done. Right. Like, I got to use my planner. Like, I absolutely have to, you know, like, have these things around me that help me fall through, because my brain will not fall through. I have to wake up every day and re-decide to do that. Just like in recovery, we have to wake up every day and re-decide to do the recovery stuff, because your addiction will try to trick you. Your addiction will be like, oh, come on, it's been 10 years. You don't need to do your recovery stuff. You don't need to go to a meeting. Come on, how many meetings do you need to go to, really?
What's a little drink going to do? Come on.
Big time. That's why step one is always going to be, you know, I mean, like, we admitted we were powerless over this thing. Like, there's a reason why step one is step one. And we never get, like, you know, we work the steps, but you're always working step one. You're always working step one. To remember that, you know, look, the minute I think that I'm in control of this thing, I'm screwed.
Right.
Like, the minute I think that I got it licked, fine.
Yeah, I had points of my life where I was sober for 2 and 3 years. I wasn't working a program or anything, but I was sober. I was dry drunk, whatever. And I would always feed myself that lie, like, I'm good enough that I can have one drink. Yeah. And every single time, like, I'd be like, I had that one drink. That one drink led to 5. And it was just like nothing every single time. And like, you guys, I mean, you guys might like me now. I might be a dickhead. Oh, well. But you would have really fucking hated me when I was drinking, because I was a piece of shit.
Well, that's like my dad. My whole life, he's been that. You know, he's always lived close enough that I never talked to him, because he was literally a bottle of vodka a day.
Really?
I mean, when he was sober, nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
But when he was drunk, he's a verbal asshole, and it's literally weeks binges, and then he'll be sober for a day or two.
Damn, man.
And then right back to it. You know.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, I remember one birthday,
crazy.
I sent him a bottle of vodka and said, I figured you'd rather see this than me. I mean, my sister, yeah. I mean, he, and I know that wasn't the right step, you know, but I mean, you know, he got in trouble and was sober for, you know, 9 months. He'd come around, hang out with the kids.
Yeah.
Great grandpa. Oh no, I'm not going to go back to drinking. As soon as he got out of trouble, right back to the bottle. So he has the ability to do it. He just chooses to not do it.
It's all about
choices. I know there's more to it, you know, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And as a kid growing up, you know, my sister and I, we were in an abusive household, and this happened from about the time I was 3 to about 12. And it was go to school, go to church 4 days a week, come home, get beat by my stepdad. That was my life. And that's what I thought every kid's life was, because that's what I knew. And I think the hardest part for me was when my mom decided to finally leave, which was a huge step, was the realization that that wasn't the norm.
Yeah.
And that was very stressful. Just that alone, like that stress level of, wow, that was not how it was supposed to be, was huge.
Especially because you have to adjust because you had accepted that. You had accepted that program was your program. Like you had accepted your existence was that. And now you had to reevaluate and adapt to life not being that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
It's a little bit of crisis on your identity as well.
Right.
You know, I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't think about. And it's like when what was that girl in Cleveland that was like trapped in a basement because somebody had like kidnapped her for like 10 years and then she finally escaped? Think about all those years. Like a whole decade goes by, you're trapped in a basement, you're getting sexually assaulted and stuff like that. And now you're just out in
Kimmy
like
Schmidt, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's
The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, that's her name?
I think so. I don't know. Just think about it like this: like you're used to that all of a sudden, and then just like that, your life's back to normal. Like, how do you readjust to that? You know what I mean? It's stressful.
And that's a perfect example of what I was talking about a minute ago when I say, you know, like if the question is, you know, can we adapt and regulate? Yeah. But the way that for example, a hostage situation like that, or the way somebody grew up in an abusive household learned to adapt and to regulate, may years later say, okay, like, yeah, I survived, right?
Yeah.
It's a shit show. It's a train wreck, right?
Right.
So it's not the case that, like we need somebody else to help us, to show us how to regulate. We did that. We may need somebody else to kind of, who wasn't in the situation, to kind of toss us a rope. You're like, okay, look, this is a different way of being, a different way of regulating, a different way of existing in the world. Like, it's not that your way, how your way worked. Everybody here in this chat is here because our ways worked.
Right.
Right? And we got to acknowledge that. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to stick with it forever. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to be that person forever.
Right.
Yeah.
I do. I when I was researching, I did come across the word brain fog multiple times, but I didn't see really a definition of the term brain fog. Could you kind of shed some light on that term?
We're
Brain
talking about
fog.
me because of my concussions.
No.
You jerk.
Brain fog is when you say something like, hey, you want to come on my podcast? It's at 9 p.m.
With Chicago smack dab in the middle of the
Chicago
country.
smack dab.
And then you text them at 8:01 going, where the hell are you? No, it's so brain fog happens. There are several conditions that can lead to brain fog. You see it a lot in trauma disorders. You see it a lot with traumatic brain disorders. You do see it with concussions. It's if you think of the symptoms that we often associate with dementia, kind of confusion, kind of difficulties with various types of memory, like episodic or procedural memory. Kind of, the name itself is, or the term itself is kind of self-explanatory. If you imagine kind of wandering around in a fog, you're kind of reaching for words, you're reaching for, whatever it is. A lot of it gets, so this is where appropriate diagnosis is really, really helpful, right?
Right.
Because the brain fog caused by, for example, big time untreated ADHD, it's going to look like brain fog because people are forgetting things and letting things slide, whatever. The cause of that is a lot different from the brain fog that happens because of PTSD, for example, which is very different in turn from somebody who might have dementia or brain damage or whatever it is. So this is why it's super important that like people say, well, why even go into a professional? Well, one of the big reasons is, gosh, if we can get super clear about what's actually going on with you, that can make a huge difference. And for example, if somebody is, kind of wandering around in brain fog because they have bipolar disorder and they're going from, up and down and up and down and up and down. But somebody says, I know what that is. That's ADHD. Have some stimulants. Give somebody who has mania stimulants, and it's not going to be a great situation.
No.
So it's super, super important to get super clear about what's going on. Like you see this a lot too with with like these body aches and pains, like the fibromyalgia syndrome, right?
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of physical pain and it's super unclear where it's coming from, right? And it can turn into chronic pain, and it's very real. Like, I think a lot of people hear fibromyalgia and they're like, oh, it means it's just in their head, right? No. Super real. All it means is that we're struggling to identify like a really specific physical component to it.
Right.
But boy, it makes a huge difference. If somebody, for example, has a trauma disorder, right? And they're experiencing what we call body memories. So a lot of times when we're traumatized and something has happened that's too intense for us to really deal with, it doesn't come back as a memory of like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like, a lot of times it comes back in the body, right? We call them body memories. There's a famous book called "The Body Keeps the Score," by Bessel van der Kolk, and it's so appropriate, right? So the point is that if you've got all these body memories going on. Every time I say body memory, I think some people are thinking I'm talking about Scientology and body thetans. It's not that. Not Xenu and the volcanoes. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
But it's a big difference if it's that versus, man, maybe you have a spinal injury that's undiagnosed. Maybe you have a traumatic brain injury that's undiagnosed. So that's why I always say, look, it's always worth it to go in and at least get checked out by a professional.
Spend that $400.
Yeah, spend that $3.99.
Come to me. Come
to him. Come to Butthead.
Wow, that was really good.
One of the things. By the way, speaking of Beavis and Butthead, before I go in, have you seen the new movie?
Yes.
It's great.
Dude, it's great. It is good.
my God.
And the new series is coming out in August.
Yeah, but a lot of the things that I've seen in the DSM-5, there's a lot of overlapping diagnosis, like for symptoms. So it's hard to diagnose somebody, and then on top of that, sometimes it's hard for the person that is, or the client, the patient, the peer, whatever you want to label them as, for them to articulate like what is exactly going on with them. So like for me, when I went in, I couldn't properly articulate probably until about a year or two into my recovery that, hey, like, this is exactly what's going on with me. This is what I've seen. This is what I've documented. Boom. This is what I can present to you.
So in the situation, I totally hear that. And I have two thoughts about that. One, most diagnoses in the DSM. So the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's kind of the Bible of kind of all the psychiatric diagnoses. The insurance.
So it has nothing to do with the new Beavis and Butthead movie.
It has nothing to do.
No way.
This is a pocket version. This is a pocket version of it.
Right there. They actually just came out with a brand new edition because they wanted to make us all buy a brand new edition. So that's the purple one. The new one is pretty blue. Most of the diagnoses have a caveat on, like, so they'll have a list of symptoms, right? And then the very last kind of criteria will be, if they have all of this, it's probably this, unless all of this is better explained by something else.
Right.
How absurd would that be in like any other medical context?
Yeah, it's kind of a guesstimate.
It's probably cancer unless it's not.
Unless it's not. Yeah, no big deal. Just hope and pray.
Estimated.
But the thing that as a psychologist, like, I'm always begging people to remember about psychiatric diagnoses are that, look, even if I can, I can take a list of symptoms and I can every one of you here, I can diagnose you with something, right?
Right.
All I've done is describe something about you, right? Like all I've done is like slap a label on that. I have not said, okay, here's why that's happening, right? I haven't really informed the treatment all that much. Like, I've given us a new term to kind of throw around and play with. Right. But we still don't know what causes a lot of psychiatric illness. The reason why diagnoses can be helpful is because it makes a difference in how we treat it, but it's still not like, look, bipolar disorder isn't a thing. It's a description. It's a description of a pattern of behavior. It's not like I can't crack open your head and say, there's the bipolar disorder. Take it out. Do it.
No, it's not
But
possible.
we act like it is. Like we act like, oh man, they have depression. Well, how do you know? Well, they do X, Y, and Z. Well, why do they do X, Y, and Z? Because they have depression. Keep up. Like you go around and around and around in circles. I gotta say though, so a way that's psychology and in mental health they're different. Like there's psychology and there's social work and there's peer support but one way that my discipline, psychology, has found kind of around this dilemma is like we have what's called psychological testing. So if you guys, I don't know if they have my ink blots here. Next time I'm on, I'll bring my Rorschach ink blots and I'll hold it up to the camera and you guys.
Oh, that'd be so dope.
Yeah, of course.
It looks like
I'd love
boobs.
You bet.
It looks like boobs.
You guys give me something. Why you guys keep showing me pictures of my parents fighting? I don't understand. But the way that those tests work, and in fact, I'll take the Rorschach as an example. The way that those tests work is it's not really that important what you see in the blots. They've done research that say, okay, we've taken a group of people that, for example, we know are bipolar versus a group of people that we know have depression versus people we know who have trauma, right? And we have identified how they respond to the bloods differently. Like we've identified like the few things that differentiate. Like, okay, if you have trauma, you tend to see this, as opposed to bipolar, you tend to see this. Like, and they've come up with like just those points of differentiation. So it's actually a really clever way around kind of the problem that you were talking about of look, there are all these overlapping symptoms. You know, what are we going to do? Okay, you bust out some psych testing and say, all right, do they respond like a trauma person? Do they respond like a bipolar person? The thing we always have to keep in mind, though, is like people are wildly different.
Yes.
Even on this podcast, people are wildly different.
Have they considered? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Have they considered making Rorschach tests into those like magic eyes? Those like magic eye pictures.
That's
like
exactly what you want to do with someone who's psychotic. You absolutely want to be like,
this is hurting my eyes.
I can't see anymore. It's all over. I can't see.
Keep looking at it. I can't see. But here's the thing. Look, I can't see stuff in those. Can you see stuff in the magic eye things? I can't. I can never see it.
Every time I've ever seen one, I go, it's a schooner.
It's a
That's his go-to answer too every time.
Dumb bastard. It's a sailboat
With 5 sails.
You know what? There is no Easter bunny.
Yep. Tear their whole world around them. That's it.
Hey, you did for the overlapping diagnosis. So, do you think that is there issues? Do you think where people go see too many doctors, so they're getting different responses because they're going to too many different places to get answers?
I don't know about too many. Like in my mind, the more eyes you have on a case, the better, right? Because I've actually seen the opposite problem. Like I've seen, situations where if there's only 1 or 2 providers involved, and they get fixated on this idea that okay, this is what's wrong with the person, right?
Right.
You can lose years because you're not getting another perspective. Like so, I don't know. Like as a rule, I like the more people involved, the more eyes on the case, the more perspective you can get, the better. The flip side of that is, though, again, I can't emphasize enough the thing that I was just saying about we have to keep in mind these are all hypotheses. Like these are all.
Yes.
Like, again, I can't crack open your head and say, there's the borderline personality disorder.
Yeah.
Right?
Just like we were discussing the whole chemical imbalance being a false, like it's not necessarily false, but it's not proven.
Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you noticed this, Doc, but is that when people get diagnosis or they get the label, those symptoms seem to worsen because the label that they put on themselves. They put themselves in that state, like they say, okay, you've been diagnosed with depression, and they're like, oh, I've been diagnosed with depression, so this is who I am. I am depressed, so therefore I have to live in the depression, and it consumes me. Is that something you've seen?
You bet. And it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Big time. That's one of the reasons why, I'm as a therapist, I'm what they call solution focused. So there are various different types of therapy. There's like psychoanalysis or cognitive therapy. I come from what's called a solution oriented perspective because I'm less interested in what's wrong with you as opposed to like, okay, how are we going to build a life going forward? Like I can slap all sorts of labels on you.
Yeah.
But really what's going to be important is what's the next step and how
Right.
you go forward. Because again, you don't want to fall into that self-fulfilling prophecy thing. I see this all the time with borderline personality disorder. So I work mostly with trauma survivors. And by the time someone gets to my office, they've usually been through a lot of systems and a lot of therapists. And the complex trauma syndrome can look a lot like borderline personality disorder. Like so people who are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, like the diagnostic criteria are like, man, your emotions are out of control, they're all dysregulated, and you're self-harming a lot, you're attempting suicide a lot, and you lift people up and then you throw people down, and it's all very black and white thinking. It's a really heavy diagnosis to get. And the prognosis for people with borderline personality disorder is not great. So when somebody gets diagnosed with it, man, they can get way up in their head about it. And they can really go down the rabbit hole of like, shit, I have borderline. I am screwed. My life is over, man.
No, it's not true, though. I think that, we got to really take those things into consideration as like something to kind of help us along. Yeah. And like you were talking about with Kastle earlier about the comedy and using that as a coping mechanism for these type of things. It's kind of what we do on our show is dark humor. And I don't know if everybody understands dark humor, but we do it anyways. And if anybody, watches along and laughs with us, that's great. We just made someone's day. But I've always spoke about that on our show too, is it's a way for us to cope. So like if we make light or make fun of something that might be tragic in a way to us or whatever the case may be, it's our way of kind of coping with it, just to kind of like make light of something even if it's dark, so it's kind of like a coping mechanism for anxiety and stress and just all the other bad negativity that goes with it. So,
One of the great things about humor is it's what we call a pattern interrupt. Like, so if you imagine, like a vinyl record, right? Mm-hmm. And, you drop the needle on it and it's going to play the same way every time because it's got grooves in it. And a lot of what we do in therapy is we try and scratch up the record so it doesn't play the same way. When people kind of get into this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like they get told they're borderline or they get told they're whatever. One of the things you need to do is like, okay, look, we need to interrupt this pattern if you think of that. Like we need to interrupt this pattern if you assuming that because you got this diagnosis, you got to do this. And humor, dark and otherwise, can be a great way to do that. Like humor, because it's like, what do we do when we laugh? It completely it scrambles everything that we were thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's amazing, and it involves the whole body too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Amazing.
I had he's a TikToker and Instagram. His name's Short Bloke Josh is what he goes by. He's a dwarf out in Australia, and all of his comedy is based off the fact that he's a dwarf. And he even said when he was on my show, he's like, I would rather be utilizing me being a dwarf to my benefit. And he's like, you're going to look at me. If I'm on the street, you're going to look at me. I'd rather just play into it and catch you off guard and make you laugh rather than me be offended about everything.
It's like Ricky Berwick. You ever seen Ricky Berwick?
Mm-mm.
No? Oh man, he's from Canada, and this guy he's a cripple, so that's his whole thing is his cripple jokes, and so it's just he does the exact same thing that you just mentioned there. He takes what's wrong with him and uses it as his content as a way of like portraying his own comedy that way. So
yeah, there's a comedian that stutters a lot, and that dude is hilarious as fuck.
Yeah,
he's so damn funny.
I need an angle. I need a gimmick. That's what I need a gimmick.
Well,
maybe I gotta find my voice. If I find my gimmick, I'll find my voice. I still haven't found my voice. I've been doing comedy all this time.
Kastle, all you gotta do is take sledgehammers and just smash your legs in, and you can use that as a comedy.
I had this. This is funny. It's funny because you brought up dwarf comedians, and it made me think of a story that's very old. I couldn't even tell you how long ago it was, but I had a joke. Just a stupid throwaway joke. I could easily never do it again and be fine, which I haven't done it again, and I'm fine. But the joke was like, I said I'd always want to. Until I I on stage said one of my goals in life is I've always wanted to meet a really shady, really like a liar, like who was a midget, so I could go up to him and say, "Hey, look, pal, I trust you about as far as I can throw you." Right? And it was such a throwaway joke. It was really fine for me to never use that joke again. But I did it once at a bar in Glenside, PA, and this woman came up to me and she said that I was really funny, and she started talking to me about how her son's a comedian and how he's a midget and how you can't use the word midget, and it's like kind of telling me I was punching down. But then I like
Hobbit.
So I wound up kind of going like, look, like I'm in the wrestling business, in the entertainment business. I've wrestled midgets. Like they rather be called midgets because they know that it's a time-honored tradition for why they're in the show. Your son wouldn't be a stand-up comedian who lives in New York or LA and has been on all these TV shows and movies had he not been that. And he's made all his jokes about that. Like, I will throw away the joke. I'll never use it again.
Right.
I'm sorry
until now.
Until now.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't do it on stage to make folks laugh. I was just giving the context for the whole thing.
And by chance, she's watching.
Yes.
Why
just so happened to be.
Wize, you really haven't been talking a whole lot. You got anything you want to talk about, man?
No, I'm just here listening and everything.
He's taking it all in.
It's actually past my bedtime.
Well, and we're gonna wrap it up here shortly, and that's why I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk if you had anything that you wanted to say. And Doctor, I don't know if there's anything that any words of wisdom, which you're always sharing words of wisdom on Twitter and all of your social medias. But as far as people who are listening to it, that do have anxiety and stress, like maybe some notes.
Sure. I mean, if you take first of all, thank you for saying that I dropped words of wisdom. I would say maybe half of them are wise. And the other half and just kind of trying it out. It doesn't really, is that wise? No, like my whole shtick is one day at a time. I mean, again, like my approach is really informed by, again, the fact that I'm in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole shtick is one day at a time, realistic, sustainable quality of life improvement. And so what that means and what it amounts to is the fact that whatever you're diagnosed with and whatever you're struggling with, whether it is a major stressor, whether it is chronic stressor, whether it's chronic pain, brain fog, whatever it happens to be, it still comes down to, look, you have on your plate exactly what's on your plate today, right?
Right.
So don't think about the next 10 years. Don't think about the next 20. Don't think about, gosh, if you're in recovery, the worst thing you can do is being like, man, I can never have another drink again. Don't think about the rest of your life. What are you, insane? First of all, you don't know how long the rest of your life is going to be. You really don't. Right. These could be the last words I ever say. I don't know. You just don't know.
Right, you take those 12 steps and then you throw a slinky down them.
Yeah, right? But my point is that whatever you're struggling with, whatever you're diagnosed with, whatever your history is, focus on quality of life today. Focus on the baby step today. Focus on something that is realistic and sustainable today. Because today is where we have our power. Like this moment is where we have our power. Like I can't change the past. I've tried. Trust me, I've tried. I tried to jump in the DeLorean and it doesn't work, as it turns out in the movie.
The Napoleon Dynamite time machine, where just kills.
I already tried it for myself.
Doesn't work. It could do it.
Doesn't work. No, I mean, I can't change the past. I can't directly change the future. Like I can kind of make some things more likely, right? But you can't really directly affect the future. Where your power is right here in this moment, and it's only your behavior at this moment. Like I can't affect anybody else's behavior. I can kind of influence it, maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
But all I can really for sure impact is my behavior in this moment. So when everything else is said and done, don't get freaked out by diagnoses. Don't get freaked out by, just bring it back to like, what can I do right now to realistically impact my quality of life? And look, some days it's just getting by, man. Like some days it's like, look, all I gotta do tonight is just hang on, man. Like dude, every addict will tell you, like we've had plenty of nights where it's like the name of the game is hanging on.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's one of the things I feel like a lot of people struggle with is living in the past.
Yep.
Not being able to get over the traumas that they've had in their life, and again, like we said before, especially with men, it's that stigmatism where you can't go get help, you can't seek help. So for me personally, I was widowed at 31, lost my wife in a car accident, and my way of dealing with it was the bottle, was drinking it away and not thinking about it, and then it was like one tragedy after another, and then finally one day I woke up and it was time. I was like, can't live like this anymore. This isn't for me. I was angry over something that I had no control over. And so for me it was just finally realizing, like, let's get over this, go get the help that you need, and just take it one day at a time.
Right.
I say it a lot, and you guys, some of you guys may have heard me say it before, but I say that many of us waste so many right nows on right nows that'll never happen. We'll never get back.
Right.
Those right nows have already happened, and we're wasting all these current right nows on.
Yeah.
Let's put that weight down. Let's put that weight down and become deliberate creators in our existence.
Yeah, there's no reason to worry about things that you can't control. I mean, we got all these things going on around the world and all that stuff that we have no control over. So, granted, there is some reasoning to worrying about it, but at the same time, you cannot let it consume you, because there's nothing you can do to directly affect what's happening around you that you cannot control. It's just like all this stuff like inflation and all that. Right. And there's people out there that let it just consume them, and they just get into this deep depression, and they don't even want to go to work or anything like that. But you just gotta just kind of equal it out and just understand that there's certain things you can do and there's certain things you can't do. And like in those big sentences of things like you were saying about the car accident and stuff. And I'm sorry about that. Sorry about your loss, man. Just those things, you can't, stress about that to a point where you let it consume you. It's like when I had a friend just pass away about a month or so ago, and it's like, what could I have said differently? What could I have done differently? But then you think about it like this, like I couldn't have, because who would have guessed that this would have happened? So just things like that you got to think about.
Yeah, I think learning to accept the things we can't control is the easiest pathway in life that we can take, because everything becomes so much easier at that point when you do learn to accept that. I've spent years on that, and that was the hardest thing that I had to learn. And also being able to accept yourself and your emotions and your feelings, and just saying that they're valid because they are. You're allowed to feel the way that you feel. And you can't control those because those are natural, but just accepting it, not dwelling in it, but continuing to try and progress your life and your surroundings, and involve yourself with people that are going to benefit your life and benefit your surroundings.
Right.
There's a really great book I can recommend by a psychologist named Tara Brach, Brach, and it's titled Radical Acceptance. And what it's all about is this idea that, ironically, if we want to change anything, we have to start with radically accepting everything exactly as it is right now, and not demanding that it be different.
Right.
Because if you think about it, how can you change something when you don't accept that it is as it is in the first place, right? Like, what are you trying to change if you don't accept it?
Yeah.
Page 417.
There you go, man.
It's my favorite page.
There you go. So.
I think I think often about a Mitch Hedberg joke. I mean, every Mitch Hedberg joke that I think about often. But when he was in a job interview, and the guy's like, "Where do you see yourself in a year?" And he's like, "Celebrating the 1 year anniversary of you asking me that question."
Celebrating that 1 year. That 1 year.
I'm tired of following my dreams, man. I'm gonna ask where they're going and hook up with them later.
All right, guys. Well, go ahead, Cory.
I was gonna say this other like Mitch Hedberg joke. I turned into like a philosophy for my life, and you guys can apply it to yourselves as well. He does this joke where he says the great thing about tennis is you could be really good. You can train at tennis real hard, but you'll never be as good as the wall.
Oh, the wall.
So when I'm talking to somebody who's pretty difficult, I'm like, I'll never be as good as the wall. Like I'm just trying to play tennis with the wall here. Or sometimes I'll be like,
relentless.
and sometimes I'm like, all right, you know what? There's only like 3 or 4 balls in this can. I'm gonna just take them to a different wall because it feels like I'm just roofing these ones.
Roofing them.
I think my favorite Mitch Hedberg joke was when he said that he loves escalators because they turn into stairs, and he said they should make signs that say "Sorry for the convenience."
Escalator temporarily stairs.
Escalator, masturbator.
I saw Mitch Hedberg just a few weeks before he died. He was on tour with Stephen Lynch.
Me too, man. I saw that one.
Yeah.
Was David Cross hosting that?
Not the one that we saw. So I saw him when they were in Washington D.C. And what occurred to me was, man, talk about a guy who was literally begging for help. I mean, kind of doing it in such a way that you couldn't really tell it was a joke, right? But he was like literally on stage. I remember this so vividly. Like he was literally on stage going, "Oh man, I'm out of jokes. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I don't know." And everyone was laughing. And he's like, "This is not a joke. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I need help." And then like weeks later,
I was at that same tour, and at one point he spilled his drink on the ground on the stage, and he went, "My only friend."
Right?
Wow.
And then weeks later he died, and you're like, "Oh my God, that was not." It recontextualizes everything.
Yeah. My best friend won front row tickets on Opie and Anthony.
Nice.
For the Philly show. I was stomping my foot laughing. I'm sure if nothing else, Mitch Hedberg was probably like, "That's a good audience member," and I got to have that with him.
It was a moment. It was a moment.
Yeah,
it was a moment.
All right, guys. All right. Well, again, I appreciate everybody being on here, and I want everybody to kind of give their shows one more shout out before we wrap it up. M-Balm, you want to go right ahead?
Yes, check me out every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on the M-Balm Effect over here. You can check that out. We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts and all that stuff. And you can check it out on the MBALMEffect.com, which is our official website. And we're on Facebook and all that too. So go ahead, smash the sub, hit the bell for all the good times. We'll make you laugh, we'll make you cry, make you angry, I don't know. Do something like that, We give you all the feels.
John, go ahead, man.
I'm M-Balm from the M-Balm Effect.
Wait, is there a delay in this stream? Is there?
I was going to do that earlier, but I didn't.
This guy's stealing my identity right on live television.
Is M-Balm
television
right now?
Oh man.
Crisis, my
identity crisis. So I'm Sean from Sitting with Sean. I'm on YouTube and Spotify. I haven't made the transition over like this other guy has. He's big everywhere we go. But yeah, we talk about addiction, mental health disorders, and stuff like that. And I post at least Monday and Fridays. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for sitting with us.
Check this guy out. Check him out.
Check me out.
It's all you, man.
My podcast, Stuck in My Mind Podcast. I'm on all major platforms. My YouTube channel is Stuck in My Mind Podcast. And check out the radio station, www.realwiseradio.com. And I'm just glad to be here, man. Always a pleasure to hang out with fellow podcasters and just have a great time.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
I appreciate you coming on tonight too.
Great to meet you, Wize. I'm actually feeling sorry that we didn't chat more.
Listen, we can always resolve that.
Yes, we will resolve that. Yes.
Hey, Cory, go ahead, man.
You follow me on all the social media platforms at Cory Kastle, as spelled right here, CoryKastle. Cory Kastle on Instagram and Spotify, or on Instagram and Twitter. Evolving with Cory Kastle on Spotify and iHeartRadio and Pandora and wherever you find and enjoy quality podcasts. Also, check out on YouTube, youtube.com/Cory Kastle, and you can check out my new show, S.H.A.M.E, that I'm hosting with my girlfriend Alyssa Marie, the singer from Netflix. I don't know, you guys have Netflix? Check out episode 2 of Sing On. The show is called S.H.A.M.E. She came up with the acronym. It's self-help and managing emotions. What we do is we have a phone number you can call and leave us anonymous voice messages asking us for any support or help, and you don't have to say who you are or anything. Just know that you'll be met with judgment-free response, and we'll play your message on the air.
Cory, I don't have a TV because I'm Amish, bro.
I thought you were a Mennonite.
I know, he called me Amish last time.
Oh, that's right. He did call you Amish in that other Clash of Casters. He did. That's right.
Man.
I remember now.
And Dr. Glenn Doyle, thank you so much again. And you can follow Dr. Glenn Doyle at, is it Doyle Says or is it Dr. Doyle Says?
It's Dr. Doyle Says on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you would do me the favor of, I'm also the board president of a nonprofit organization called Seek Safely. And we are dedicated to advocating ethics and accountability in the self-help world. There are a lot of scammy self-help grifters out there. So we try to restore some ethics and accountability to a historic.
Talking about me.
I'm talking about exactly you. I wasn't going to say
Self-help
anything.
and managing emotions.
That's how Kastle and I met. Actually, is because he was messaging one of these self-help grifters on Twitter, and I kind of jumped into the conversation and said, "Don't have that guy on your podcast. Have me." And that's
Yeah, get rid of that guy. Get me on there. He said.
but if you do follow me on Twitter, every now and then you can see me and Kastle throwing Norm Macdonald jokes back and forth because that's
Dude, you know, I was just about to quote the Norm Macdonald show, the episode 1 on Netflix. Norm Macdonald has a show with David Spade, where David Spade, who's talking about something, he's like, he's a bit of a boozy Susie. I was thinking about saying that the whole time, but I held it to myself.
God bless you.
It's
been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having
too.
me on, and
yes.
I'd love to chat with you guys at any time.
Of course. We do I try and do a Clash of the Casters episode every couple months, so I need to do it more frequently because I love doing serious topics like this, but more like a open conversation because it's just so much more relaxed. And I'm also Jukebox.
I can't take seriously. I can't take things seriously for too long. I have to crack jokes.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, I feel the same way, man. Sometimes I do.
Conversation. We're having a conversation about psychiatric diagnoses. Okay, hold on. There was this midget.
Hold on. There's one thing I gotta say, and he says that.
And I am Jukebox Ginger. I'm the one who hosts this show that reeks of dudes. So
that's gonna be a shirt idea for you, man.
Yeah.
Him and his dudeness.
Thank all of you for tuning in. I will put everything in the description. All of your shows. Is there a website for your nonprofit organization?
It is seeksafely.org.
I will also add that in the description as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. And everybody that's watching, all of you, thanks for tuning in tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Got the bongos.